Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming to you again. Got the University of Oregon hat on, so we're going to have another political topic, three in a row. I promise there'll be more variety when the news slows down and I can start talking about other things and maybe even do a deep think piece. I'm not entirely sure when that LSE hat's coming back out again, but for now, we got to talk about the news of the day. Heck, the news of yesterday in some ways. As anyone who has been paying close attention to the news knows, Kamala. There. Sorry. I don't know what syllable to put the correct emphasis on. I apologize for that. Kamala Harris has effectively secured the Democratic nominee for president. Now, I thought she would get it. I put it at a 60% chance to get it on the day that Joe stepped down. I think that she zoomed right past 60 and now she's in the upper 90% chance to get it. Something strange could happen, I suppose. But without anybody actually stepping up to challenge her, there's no one else to vote for. Even if you wanted to have a competitive convention, you still have to have an alternate candidate, and there isn't one, and there doesn't appear to be one. The only domino that hasn't fallen at this point is Barack Obama. Barack Obama has not come out and affirmatively endorsed Harris, and that's okay. He may very well do that. He might hold out hope for a competitive convention. I'm not entirely sure, but that question, I think it's closed. I think that Harris, in particular, with her pretty good appearances, the speech that she gave at the campaign headquarters in Delaware was well received, and it was on point, and it was quite refreshing when we've been looking at really old and difficult to kind of follow presidential candidates as incoherent as Joe Biden was. Donald Trump was too. And you get this real contrast between somebody who's 59 years old and somebody who's 78. So it's just a reality of humans. Humans, when they get to be in their late 70s, they naturally lose a bit on their fastball. It's not weird. It's just normal. There are people in their 70s and 80s who can keep up, and there are certainly people in their 70s and 80s who have good days and bad days, but people who are 59, well, they tend to have better days. And so, with that question closed, the natural next question is, well, who's her Veep? The Veep stakes is on, and we have reports that there are 6 folks who have been officially contacted for vetting by the political operatives of the now Harris campaign. These 6 folks are Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. These folks, some of them you may have thought might have actually led the ticket. There were, in particular, among the Never Trump conservatives, some visions of Josh Shapiro, floating through their heads because he's a centrist new face, the governor of Pennsylvania, and he has some things to recommend him for actually leading the ticket, but he's not going to have the opportunity to lead the ticket. But apparently, he is under consideration to be the Veep. But let's start at the start. Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly is the first-term senator from Arizona, and his political career was really stepping in for his wife. After Representative Gabbard got shot in the head and had to step down from her House seat, Mark Kelly took up the baton of her political career and actually ended up winning a Senate seat. And he won the Senate seat based on being a pragmatist. He's certainly a centrist as far as Democrats go, but still clearly a Democrat. I mean, you would call him a left-winger if we were in 2010, but he's certainly in the center of the current Democratic Party, but it's not his political career that recommends him, it's his previous career. He was a fighter pilot. He fought combat missions in Iraq, and he was an astronaut. He set a record for the most days consecutive in space. Oh, and he's got a twin brother, so he's got somebody to tag out for him if he gets tired. He is a very strong candidate for the Veep stakes because of his personal story, his connection to the politics, his relative lack of baggage, because he is a one-term senator. You're not going to go back and see that he's been in Washington long enough to be on both sides of every issue. And he's from Arizona. Arizona's a swing state. Arizona's a state that Harris is going to want to win. It's not a need, but it's one of those states that, if she wins it, her path to victory broadens significantly. Similar to Georgia. Georgia would be another state that, if Harris wins it, her path to victory broadens significantly. And so his popularity in Arizona among the Democrats, who see him as certainly better than their other senator, Sinema, and the Republicans, who have a difficult time disrespecting a military man whose parents were both cops. Both of his parents were cops in New Jersey. His mom was the first cop to ever pass the physical test in the precinct in West New Jersey. I don't remember the town's name, but he's not going to be vulnerable to this soft on crime, radical left wing liberal stuff. He's just going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. I grew up with cops. I fought in wars. I flew in space. That's going to really sound a little hollow if people start talking about the Harris Kelly ticket as being soft on crime or particularly woke liberal. I just don't think that will sound true to anybody whose mind could possibly be changed. I mean, there's going to be the sycophants and the loyalists and the worshippers of Donald Trump who will believe anything that you tell them, but those aren't thinking people, and you don't have to pay attention to them, because whereas they will be a strong base, they aren't going to decide the election. The sycophancy does not reach 51%, or I guess Republicans only have to get about like 48% of the popular vote to win nowadays, but it's just not big enough. The true believers, the folks who are deep in the tank for Donald Trump, represent 10-20% of the population. That's a heck of a lot of people. That's tens of millions of people. It's kind of terrifying that there's that many people out there who can be fooled. And as Abraham Lincoln says, you can fool some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Well, Donald Trump has proved that he can fool these some people all the time. And the other folks who are more cynically supporting Donald Trump because they didn't like Joe Biden, or they don't like the cultural left, the progressive left culture, they find the, for lack of a better word, wokeism distasteful, they're not going to be able to latch on to Kelly as a good avatar of those things they don't like. And so the big advantage of nominating Kelly is that he would really shore up those things that Harris might otherwise be vulnerable to. I mean, in reality, Harris was a center-left attorney general. She was a center-left senator. She never really embraced radicalism, but, she is a brown woman, and so the certain part of the Republican Party will try to paint her with that. I mean, racism is a thing. So Kelly really helped with that. He is a white male. He has no hair. That's pretty good as far as visuals go. The risks with Kelly, there are two. The first risk is just an effect of Arizona law. In Arizona, if you're going to run for another position, you have to resign your current position. That means he would have to resign from the Senate. And there is a Democratic governor in Arizona, and so until there's a special election, that governor could appoint another Democrat to that Senate seat. But there is the risk. There's the risk there that the Democrats would be giving up a Senate seat in a special election. There's some practical matters that might mitigate this risk. It's late enough in the year that maybe the governor can make the judgment that you really ought not have a Senate special election this fall. There certainly isn't enough time to have a primary and a election this fall, and so maybe the special election for Kelly ends up being next fall with a primary in the spring. And if that's the case, should Kelly and Harris lose, well, he could just run for a seat again, and that might just mitigate that issue. The other issue with Kelly is more about the dynamics between presidents and vice presidents. Presidents can't be outshone by their vice president. It's not a good thing for a president's ability to govern for everybody to want the president on the bench to get in the game, coach. And so presidents will commonly pick vice presidents who are just a little suckier than them. You certainly saw that with Barack Obama picking Joe Biden. Joe Biden wasn't going to outshine Barack Obama. You saw the same thing with Mike Pence and Donald Trump. There's no doubt that Mike Pence was never going to have the kind of mass, rock star appeal of Donald Trump to those folks who are going to listen to him. And you see it with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is definitely subservient to Donald Trump. It's not uncommon that this is how presidents pick their vice presidents. It's not a rule. Certainly, George W. Bush was uh, going to be looking up to Dick Cheney a little bit, but because of Dick Cheney's politics, affect, and health, he was never really a political threat, so that doesn't really count. Al Gore was a reasonable political threat to Clinton, but still second best. The best example, probably, of a vice president who had a risk of outshining the president they served for was George H.W. Bush and Reagan, but Reagan shined so bright, he didn't really have any risk of that either. So Mark Kelly, he might actually be a stronger, in the end, character than Harris herself. And so there's some risk for that. I suspect she'll take it. I'm going to go ahead and put my marker down, and you're going to realize that I just spent a few minutes talking about Mark Kelly because I think I could end the video here. I believe that Mark Kelly will be Harris's vice presidential nominee. But let's go through the rest of the list just to make sure that we're being thorough. The next person is North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. He is a two-term governor of North Carolina. He is term limited out. He won't be the governor of North Carolina soon, and so he's looking for another job. He's also in his late 60s. Late 60s, white guy, southern state, but still a swing state, and he wouldn't be threatening at all to Harris, but he would check some of the same boxes as Kelly, in particular his executive experience and his relatively moderate policies, making him more acceptable to folks who are in the center who might be looking for a little bit of reassurance that they can vote for a Democrat and not get all of the far left culture, for lack of a better word. See, let's put a pin in this. A lot of folks on both sides of the political divide are terrified of the other side. The folks in the center left are terrified of the MAGA culture, that kind of abrupt, assaultive, mildly rhetorically violent culture that you get from the MAGA folks, the folks who call for civil war. Well, the left has their own version. The left has the, for lack of a better word, woke or progressive or activist left, and these are the folks who do the campus sit-ins, who break the Starbucks windows, who fly the mildly anti-Semitic, flags, people who say from the river to the sea, people who say all cops are bastards. But the right. The center right is terrified of those folks. And I think the center left and the center right have good reason to be terrified. Both of them. The left-wing radicals who, break the window of the Oregon Historical Society, which is quite frankly a very progressive organization, and they write land back in the middle of it. That's really scary. Those are not nice people, and they're not really well connected with reality. And you also obviously have the example of the right's willingness to embrace truly terrifying political iconography and political violence too. And so when you are dealing with the polarization that we've got, where you've got a left wing which is truly radicalized and scary and a right wing which is truly radicalized and scary, you may be looking for a candidate to reassure you. If you're on the right, you may prefer those fellow travelers who are eminently radicalized and scary, but they won't hurt you, to the left-wingers who are radicalized and scary and are targeting you. Well, these candidates, Roy Cooper and Mark Kelly, probably give an opportunity for those center-right folks to not be terrified of what would happen if they voted for a Democrat. Next person on the list is Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. This is actually a case of probably not yet. Josh Shapiro just got elected to be the governor of Pennsylvania. He was the attorney general before. He is a true centrist. He does not cotton to the real ideological whims. He tamps it down. He says, let's not do that. Let's be practical. Let's govern. He is the absolute number one choice of folks at the bulwark, or who you would otherwise call ex-neocons, the never Trumpers. They want Josh Shapiro. I don't blame him. I think Josh Shapiro would be a fine vice president. I think he'd be a fine president. I'm of the belief that we should probably tack to the center as much as we can and try to have folks who are relatively civil. But he isn't a household name. He doesn't have any name recognition, particularly, and sad to say, so one of the reasons why it'd be difficult for Josh Shapiro in 2024 to be president is the same reason he'd be difficult to be vice president, is because that same river to the sea, destroy Israel, free Palestine. These activists who are in that lane are not going to allow a Jew who is a Zionist to be vice president. I mean, it's not like necessarily they can stop it, but you better believe they're going to be unhappy, and they do have power in the Democratic Party. And so they probably have a veto over Josh Shapiro. Sorry, man. Pick a different religion. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. This would be a strong choice. The thing about Gretchen Whitmer is she does have high name recognition because of the conspiracies against her, because of the role that Michigan has played in politics over the last 8 years. She's come up in the world, and she might have the highest name recognition of everybody we're going to talk about. And she says she doesn't want to do it. And I don't blame her. I might not want to do it either. I might prefer to serve out my term as governor, maybe make a little bit of money afterwards, and then dip my toe back into politics sometime in 2028 or 2032, or maybe go to the Senate. Who knows? But it is something where she has said unequivocally, I'm not interested in the job. Well, I take her at her word. She is still being vetted, so maybe she's being coy about that. But yeah, it's something where until we see other information, we'll go ahead and stick with it. Now, the other issue with Gretchen Whitmer is it doesn't balance the ticket, as you say. It's two women. And I still am of the belief that misogyny is alive and well in the United States. I'm of the belief that sexism probably is a driving insidious force in a lot of decisions that people make in this country, and political decisions among them. And you already have one woman on the ticket. You might need to have a man to balance it out. And that's not fair at all. I wish the world didn't work that way, but it does. Illinois Governor J.P. Pritzker, another two-term governor, another guy who has actually done more to take on the far left than most governors. He is a practical centrist Democrat, but the vast majority of his political fights have been with the left. He has been attempting to get Illinois politics to come back to some degree of sanity, fiscal sanity in particular. The governors and legislatures of Illinois have spent themselves into a hole, and it took somebody who actually had to say, well, there's some medicine to be taken to get them no, not out of it, but to get him to maybe stop digging. And that is what Pritzker has done over the last 8 years. So good for him. He would be a good vice presidential candidate. He's a good communicator. He has a little bit of that Chicago, the Bears kind of look about him, if you know what I mean. And I don't think he's going to get picked. Again, he's just not a name, and he doesn't bring a swing state, and he'd be good. He'd be good in the executive office, but it's not his time. In this timeline, he didn't get the timing exactly right. The next person is another example, although more Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Tim Walz deserves to be included on this list kind of as a thank you. He has been a tremendously effective rhetorical surrogate for Joe Biden. In the upper Midwest, he has done a lot of events for Joe Biden, reminding the folks who live in the upper Midwest that Donald Trump is a Manhattan dweller who doesn't know anything about rural America. And Tim Walz is from rural America. He really is. If you are going to see rural folks start to come back to the Democratic Party, it'll be because of the efforts of people like Tim Walz. And so maybe he's included on this list as a tip of the hat, but he doesn't have a chance either. Now, some known names that are notably missing from this list. The first one is Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg has actually put in a little bit of work in the last couple days. He's made a number of appearances where he's taken on J.D. Vance explicitly and done a good job. And Pete and JD have a lot in common. They're both from the Midwest. They're both Ivy League folks. They're both veterans. And Pete has a lot of credibility when he says JD Vance is a cynic and he's lying to you and he doesn't believe what he says. Pete can say that with a lot of credibility. It happens to be true. I mean, I'm not sure that JD Vance is lying to you anymore. He may very well have just changed his mind 180, but the idea that you have somebody whose opinions are that elastic is automatically suspicious. The reason why Pete will not be the vice president is the outshining issue. Pete's a better speaker and communicator than Harris, a lot. And his name recognition is high enough that you might start seeing that, we want the backup president. Take him off the bench, let him in, coach. And that's not good for Harris's ability to govern or her presidency. So she's just not going to do it. Don't expect if Harris wins that Pete will be part of the administration. He's 42 years old. You got to keep him coming, and he's going to be qualified. He already has managed to run the Department of Transportation with hiccups, but not terrifying hiccups. I wish he had been able to spend more of the money that was appropriated for him, but that is another video entirely. The other person that I half expected to be on this list was a guy named Andy Beshear. Andy Beshear is the governor of Kentucky, a deep red state, and somewhat like Tim Walz, he connects with rural voters in a way that very few Democrats do. I don't know why he's not on the list. He would be in a similar spot as Tim Walz, where this guy just doesn't have a lot of name recognition. And even though his circumstances and his story are great, you only have 100 and some days to introduce him to folks. So maybe we should go ahead and find somebody a little bit more famous. So that's our list. I guess I want to know from you all, who do you think the vice president will be, and who do you think it should be as far as Harris's nominee? I am, again, going to go ahead and put my marker down on Mark Kelly. I think that'll be our pick, and we'll go into the convention and learn about that. They will almost certainly announce the vice presidential pick before August 7th, because that's when the virtual roll call will happen to officially give Harris the nomination. So we won't have to wait long to find out. But nonetheless, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Give this video a like if you enjoyed the run through here. It's a bit of a laundry list of folks, and so I'm sorry I had to run through that. I hope this video didn't end up going too long. And, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that already. The other thing you can do, if you like this stuff, just tell a friend. Just tell a friend, hey, I watch this. And if they like it, then great. You just got some friendship points. And if they don't like it, then blame it on me, because it's obviously my fault. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. Thanks.